It's a 2018 BMW X5 M F85. I'm Joe. Today we're going to be doing lower control arm and thrust arms on the front. Vehicle currently sits at approximately 86,000 miles and starting to get a little sloppy in the front end. Tran lining on the highway, light clunking over small bumps, and driveline load and unload from a torque perspective. And just general, just seems like overnight the handling went from superb to kind of floaty, unstable, uncertain. And BMWs generally need a little bit of a refresh come 100,000 miles. For a powerful and heavy truck like this, I think 85,000 is rather appropriate. This job will overflow to, of course, the F86, which is pretty much a twin, but also the F15, F16, so the X5 and X6 non-Ms, in addition to the F70, and many other BMWs use the same steering or front suspension geometry. So there's going to be some M-specific things on this vehicle. This has the S63, 4.4 twin-turbo V8, so a little bit different underneath from a belly pan perspective, but overall, pretty similar. I did decide to stick with all OEM components. I'll recap my findings. I also did a forum post on this as well, kind of aggregating all the control arm conversations, but I did end up biting the bullet and just sticking with all OE. So you're looking at the OE part numbers, the way this came from the factory, including fasteners. I know there's options to change the bushings. You could stick with the rubber bushings. You can go poly. I wanted to just stick with all OEM stuff to consider money, time, and NVH, among some other things. So this video is going to be on just direct replacement without changing anything. Now I'm going to accomplish this job today by doing a combination of ramps, jack stands, and jacks. This is going to be my starting position. The first thing I'm going to want to do is remove, there's a front like cloth-like material, soft material for the underpan. I'm going to go ahead and remove that while it's up on ramps. Once I do that, then I'm going to use the jack point at the rear bottom of the engine where the subframe is a safe jack point. You can jack it in the center. I'm going to bring up the front. Of course, I have the vehicle in park. Parking brake is on, and I also have a combination of wood in the front, which isn't really needed, and just stop on each side there, wheel chock, just to make sure. So I'm going to start with that, and then we'll move on to getting jack stands on this. Pretty self-explanatory, and I'll report back if I learn anything on this. But I believe these are 8mm fasteners. I just need to remove what is going to be this tray right here. And that will give me the ability to get to the bolts on the inboard side of both the control arm. You can see that you can't actually get to that with the plastics that are there. And of course this one. So I'm going to be removing not only this cloth material, but once that's removed, then there's a small plastic piece on each side that will expose the bolts there. So I'm going to start there and report back. All right, primary tools that you'll need for this job. This has a combination of 18, 21, and 28 millimeters. So I'm going to be using sockets of various sizes here. I have tall, short, but I'll probably pull out some shorties as I need it. Wrenches. That's about it for this job. I will be using a torque wrench for the final torque with the suspension under load. And then everything else is just the 8 millimeters for getting rid of the plastics underneath. A couple little push rivets. So I'll use a push rivet tool there. Obviously pulling off the wheels. I'm going to be a 17 millimeter, so get that off. But not a whole lot of tools for this job. There might be some supplementals I have to do relating to ball joints and getting those separated from the knuckle. However, I also may just use a hammer and beat on not the knuckle, but the arms themselves because, well, I'm not reusing any component of my original equipment, so I don't care if the old ones get banged up a little bit. This underbody has been removed. Nothing notable here. It is at 8 mil. There are 16 bolts. They are all the same. And I thought I was going to have to pop these little tabs off. And I know this is different on the non-M vehicles, but for you M vehicles, you do not have to remove those pop rivets. They'll come off as one complete assembly. 16 8mm. Okay, left and right plastics that cover the inboard thrust and control arm bolts are off. It's a combination of 8mm, so they're carried along with the underbelly there. I think there's 5 of them on each side and 3 push pins. It's worth mentioning on this rear one, you can see it's notched. That's from the factory. So you don't have to completely remove that push pin. You can just pull it slightly loose and then just have it come right out. I'm now going to proceed with getting the vehicle off the ramps, suspension unloaded. I'm going to jack it from a single appropriately sized jack. I'm going to put it on that jacking point right there. This is called out in your manual as well. And then once I have it up in the air, I will go ahead and pull these ramps out and then go ahead and put jack stands on each side. All right, jack points on both sides are set, same height. The OE jacking points. And I will leave that one as well as a tertiary jack. Again, transmissions in park, parking brakes on, wheel chocks behind each wheel. Let's get the wheels off. All right, with both front wheels off, we really have full exposure to everything we need. There's the inboard bolt and nut for the thrust arm. And then we can also see the bolt and nut for the inboard control arm. And everything else is on the knuckle side, right underneath. I'm gonna get removing and report back anything that's worth sharing. All right, so I determined that there's one extra piece of plastic that you need to remove, which is this little triangle guy. Same thing, 8mm bolts, 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not so much for disassembly, but to get a torque wrench in there when you're all done, it's gonna need to come out. So that on both sides. All right, old arms are out. Couple of tips. So where the thrust arm mounts here, that's pretty straightforward, right? With the plastics gone, you can get in there. You're gonna need some extensions and different sizes than I showed earlier, but you can get it done. Same with that one. You know, that one's just staring you in the face. Where the lower portion of the strut is, this one's a little interesting because the bushing is tired. When you try to use a breaker bar and pull it off, it flexes a little bit, right? So you got to load the bushing in order to get it off, but a little bit of impact, a little bit of, using the breaker bar, it works just fine. And I didn't have to worry about the fasteners. I highly recommend getting new fasteners. You beat these up a little bit. This one got beat up a little bit. These two could definitely be reused, but as you saw earlier, I'm going to be doing them again. The ball joint nuts. Yeah, I beat the crap out of them. I know there's tools. I did the method where I left the nut on the bottom and I just banged it with a small mallet. After, I don't know, 20, 30 blows each, a little bit of PB blaster. I thought I was gonna have to get some heat, but they come out. And I know there's different approaches, but I banged them out and yeah, that hardware, no way you're reusing them or the threads on the ball joint, they're gone. You do need to do the arm. You need to take the control arm out first and then the thrust arm. It's awfully close. Getting the shaft out is awfully close to the CV boot. What you ultimately have to do is rotate the shaft. It's obviously forward. You want to undo this bolt first, let it drop, and then just take the arm and actually move it to the back. And once you do that, if you approach it from that angle, you have room to get it out. It's close. You also highly recommend you don't let the suspension completely, I mean, it's held in by the strut mount and the end link and tie rod and stuff, but I definitely just support it a little bit. And I did have to move it up and down a little bit, give me the room. Be careful not to rip the boot, but yeah, arm first, or control arm first, thrust arm second, and you pretty much take it from its equivalent position here and swing it behind, like if you were going to do it in the same spot on the back side, and then you can lift it out. It's close, but it works. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Just takes a little bit of elbow grease. All right, new arms are installed with the hardware, loose. A couple pointers. Again, thrust arm needs to go in first this time, right? It's last time, or when you're removing, it's last. When you're installing, it's first. Bring it in through this side, and then get the ball joint set in the knuckle, and then swing it around. The hardest part is the fork. You just got to kind of go under the fork for the strut, but you want to bring it in from the back side, swing it up. Once they get them in, I hand tighten them. Everything's just loose at this point. Swing it up. You're able to really push the whole suspension with your hand to get the hole to line up and put the bolt in. I noticed when I was disassembling the order of the bolt, you can see that the nut is in the front side. When I disassembled on this side, the nuts, or when I disassembled the nut for the one was facing rear. On the passenger side, they're facing the same way. So I don't know if this has been done before. Maybe the original owner under warranty, not sure. But in either case, new hardware, everything's tight. So, or loose. What I'm gonna end up doing now is I'm going to put a jack right under here, jack it up to ride height, and go ahead and torque it down. Before I do that though, I am going to torque these ball joints because they do not need to be at ride height. So I'm gonna get those tightened up, then I'm gonna jack it up, and then I'm gonna handle the 3 other bolts. Nothing really notable. Pretty straightforward. Everything's just really heavy, and you just gotta shift it around, and well, that's that. Okay, both of those have been torqued to 80 Newton meters. I did run into a problem where the ball joint, even though they're new and tight, would just spin. So I had to do where I can hold. You can see there's a Allen that you can put right there. You hold it with an Allen. And I didn't have the socket size, as I pointed out earlier, is a, what is it, 24, 28. I didn't have that in a wrench. So 1 1/16 is the equivalent. So I did the whole, just to get it to bottom out. And then once I got it to bottom out, I could throw this on my torque wrench and torque it to 80 foot-pounds. These are the self-locking. You can tell when they grab, and when everything bottoms out, it's good. The ball stops rotating. I got it as tight as I could, and then I just hit it with the torque wrench to get it to 80. So that's pretty straightforward. And again, you don't have to load. The property of that does not change under load, so those are tight. Now just remains the 4 right here, or 3 right here. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, everything's torqued up. So what I ended up doing, like I said, is I ended up just putting the jack under here. I took notice of the upper and where that sat and jacked it so we were at that ride height. And then I went ahead and torqued all these down. I'll put it in the description. This one was like 80 Newton meters or 100 Newton meters and 90. This back one I think was 100 Newton meters. In any case, I'll put it in the description. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they're all slight variations, but all need to be done with the car at ride height or near ride height. You definitely don't want to torque it down with the suspension completely unloaded. You'll get premature wear on the bushings. Pretty straightforward. Doing it on jack stands is I had to bust out my big torque wrench, and not the easiest, but it is accomplishable. It'd be great if I could just walk right underneath of it. So if you're on a lift and doing this, cake. You know, the other thing worth mentioning is normally for on this one, I torqued it from the nut. And same thing on this one. Unfortunately, you know, you're supposed to torque it at the nut side, not the head side. Unfortunately for this one, there's no way to get a socket and then torque wrench in there. So this is where the wrench had to go. and I had to torque it from the head side. Not ideal, but not the end of the world either. At the end of the day, everything is torqued, and I dropped it back down, and that is done. I don't foresee any differences on the other side at all, but if there are, I'll go ahead and record that up. But that's pretty much job done. So everything else is going to be reassembly. I'm going to get the wheel back on, get that torqued back up. Anytime I touch anything on this thing, I always torque it back to spec. I know people have mixed feelings on that, but at the end of the day, fasteners do have characteristics on stretching and, you know, how far the threads get pulled and all that. I remember a friend of mine years ago gave me a book. It was like 400 or 500 pages just on thread pitches and sizes and hardness and coatings, and it's amazing. So who am I to argue with the fine engineers at BMW M? So everything's done on this side. Get the wheel on, torque that to 100 foot-pounds, and carry on to the other side. All right, passenger side has been disassembled and reassembled. I'm at the point now where the two ball joints have been torqued to spec, and I'm just about to load this up. Go ahead and knock out these 3 fasteners as I did on the other side. But reporting back, there is no difference on the driver's side or on the passenger side compared to the driver's. It is as we expected. Same rules apply, however. To remove, control arm comes out, then the thrust arm, then the thrust arm in, then the control arm. And the same thing, I had to take the arm and really swing it towards the back, play with it a little bit, change the orientation of it, all that. And it fits, it's tight. I think I've seen, as I've been working on this, I feel like I've seen some videos where some folks remove the axle nut. I didn't want to get into that. I've had it out before. So this car has already seen, I did end links last year on both sides. And this has also seen a front set of brakes completely, and also wheel bearings on the front. So really the only thing I haven't done up front, doesn't need to be done yet, is the tie rods, surprisingly, have 0 play in them. And the upper doesn't have any play in it either, so I'm going to leave that alone. And then, of course, the axle, but I don't expect that to be going anytime soon. So maybe in the spring, I'll do the end links, or the tie rods and the upper, and that will just really be a complete refresh ahead of 90,000. But yeah, everything's looking good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, like I said, get this torqued up, bring it down, go for a little cruise. I have an alignment scheduled for tomorrow. Go have that banged out. And then I will come back and I'll do the plastics after the alignment. I'll put that all back. I was missing a push pin, and I was missing, I think, 2 bolts. Not surprising, rattle out, you know, maybe not put tight the first time. So going back together, I want to make sure there's fasteners everywhere they're supposed to be. But that's really a job done. So I look forward to getting the alignment and just feeling this feel a lot better. Yeah, a few of the bushings, the driver's side thrust arm bushing definitely had some slight tears in it. Not as bad as I thought it would be. The ball joints all around, though, yeah, you could just move them with your hand without any real resistance. So they were tired. It was time for them to go. And, yeah, here's to another 85,000 miles on the 2018 X5 M. Boy, do I love this machine. Though they do take some maintenance to keep going. It was one of my rules when I bought this. You know, secondhand, got it for a good price. I couldn't afford it if I was bringing it to the dealer or even a mechanic every time. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I already did OE arms, you know, about $2,000 to do all of it. So it's costly, but I could only imagine, I mean, easily double the cost if I brought it to the dealer. Probably a $5,000 job. So all in, let's see, I started around noon. I've been pacing and done other things. I would say about 2 hours aside, slow and steady. I'm very particular when I do things, like I said, you know, torquing everything down. Also just like cleaning out everything. Like I made sure there's no dirt. A lot of dirt gets kicked up in these little cavities, so I wiped everything down. Small detail at the end of the day, I guess doesn't really matter, but I'm willing to take the extra time and get it done. So that's the video. I hope this was helpful, but not a whole lot to it. Get ready to get a workout, man. I feel like I've done sit-ups all day, and I'm feeling it, but it's a rewarding experience, and it's going to be riding real nice. Thanks for watching. All right, so in the end, I ended up needing quite a bit more tools. Some mallets to encourage things, pop rivet, or just pull tab removal, whatever that thing's called. Various breaker bars, conversions. What was I say? 6mm hex, a couple extensions, 17 for the wheel lugs, a couple different size 8s, D40, torque wrenches of various drives, 28, 1 and 1/16, 21 wrench, 18 wrench.